the Democrats are in a mode in which, and particularly Joe Biden, is in a mode in which he wants to salvage the bipartisan deal, and so that he can salvage the 50 votes necessary for a reconciliation deal. These two things are going to run in parallel. We have talked about them as being supplemental in some respects. The reconciliation bill, providing funding for the bipartisan bill that didn't go far enough, I should say. For example, the support for electric vehicles provision. I can't remember the specific numbers off the top of my head, but I think going into it, the Democrats wanted, let's say, 100,000 EV stations around the country. I think it was probably closer to 65. And the bipartisan deal only provides 15,000. Don't hold me to these numbers. I don't have them right in front of me. The point is the dynamic. The White House has said and made a pledge that nothing in the reconciliation bill will add to the specific silos in the bipartisan bill. So in other words, you could provide in the reconciliation bill, hypothetically, $400 billion worth of solar panels or subsidies, just hypothetically. But according to the pledge that Biden has made to the bipartisan voting bloc, there will be no more funding for EV stations. Now, there may be ways that the Democrats in their reconciliation bill get around this so that it's not technically adding to the specific line item or silo. For instance, rural broadband. I think Biden wanted $65 billion, and I think they ended up doing maybe $20 billion. You could not then add another $45 billion theoretically to rural broadband. But who knows what you could call it at that point. You could create a different program. But it is an important understanding to know when you start to talk about the politics that are involved in this. They need to argue that the bipartisan bill is a limiting principle, if you will, so that it will hopefully pass, and the value of it passing is to get Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema's votes on the reconciliation bill, because it is the members of the House and some members of the Senate has said, we're not voting for one if we don't get both. And so the deal here is deliver the bipartisan bill. Sinema and Manchin will then vote theoretically for the reconciliation bill. And that's the way this is going to work. But for there to be value to the bipartisan bill, Republicans need to be able to say, hey, we prevented an extra $40 billion to rural broadband. It's another question altogether as to why that would have value to them. But that's the way that they, that's where they find their value. So understand the sort of delicate interplay here. When Biden says this is a limiting principle and gives the opportunity for some of those Republicans who are on board with this in that gang of 10 talking points, it makes it harder for Mitch McConnell to scuttle that bill. You can pass it with 55 if McConnell says we're not going to do a filibuster. And of course, if they do the filibuster, then the hand of people who want to reform the filibuster and argue against the position that Joe Manchin has taken, they are strengthened. So it's a very interesting interplay that's going on here. And the bottom line of it is, if it works out, we could be looking at the largest expansion or stimulus infrastructure investment in soft infrastructure that we have seen in this country. I don't know, maybe ever in one bill. I mean, we're talking about the potential of $5 or $6 trillion worth of spending. That's extraordinary. but we're a ways off for it for actually happening.
Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.